Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bentonville. My name is Aimee Ross, and I am a industry consultant for a local organization here known as RUNWAY Group. RUNWAY exists to help create opportunities to move Northwest Arkansas forward and build the best version of ourselves. And I'm fortunate enough that I get to run business development, economic development in the cycling space for them. So I'm really excited to be here and meet a bunch of you later on. Okay, so we have a really fun, exciting panel. Some of these ladies I've known for a little while. Mindy and I just met today, so I'm really excited to hear more about what she has been up to. So I'll let you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves, starting with Mercedes.
Is this on? Can you guys hear me? Hi, I'm Mercedes Ross. I'm the executive director for Project Bike Tech, and we place bicycle mechanic classes into high schools in the junior and senior year. So we are producing employees and bicycle enthusiasts at a young age. As you know, the bicycle industry loses them at about 16, and we try to capture them, introduce them to the fact that they might be interested in our industry from a career standpoint, and most importantly, turn them into bicycle enthusiasts for the rest of their lives. And for the rest of their lives, they know how to fix their bike and live a healthy life if we don't do anything else to them. But mostly, we do introduce them to our wonderful industry, and we capture those students that fall through the cracks in our education system. So our goal is to single-handedly change the education system to teach kids that are good with their hands and incredible mechanics, that they're good at that, and then that's okay. In doing that, hopefully garner some amazing humans for our industry and let them know what an opportunity that is. I've been in the industry for 34 years. I'm what's now called a veteran. And as a female in the industry, I will say that path was tough at times, and we can talk about that, and that I think now is the best time to be a female in our industry. It's come a long way, and I do have some opinions there, but it was a tough road to hoe. But thank you so much, and I'm so happy to be on this panel and to be speaking to all of you here at the Cycle of Influence, so that's it.
My name's Kelsey Miller. I'm from Bentonville, and I'm the Bentonville program lead for Little Bellas, as well as a regional specialist. And so Little Bellas is a program for girls mountain biking, and we basically have a bunch of different programs across the United States. We have 66 different programs in different states and cities. And it exists solely to get girls on bikes and to try to keep girls active and to build confidence. And so, there are many ways that we go about doing that, but it is not a competitive program. It is strictly there to build strong female relationships, to build confidence on the bike, and of course, to have fun. And it is as cute and as fun as it sounds. So I've been able to do that for, 6 or 7 years, and recently I'm now starting to support other Little Bellas programs nationally, which has been a lot of fun. But otherwise I've been in the bike industry for, 10 years. And I'll agree, even in those 10 years, it's become a lot better, and I appreciate people like you that have really put in the groundwork. Definitely still a lot of challenges to be had, but it's been really great to be a part of the younger generation and seeing them come up more confident than I ever really thought was possible.
Is it on? Oh, there we go. I'm Mindy Silva. I work for Camber Outdoors as their chief of staff, and we work on advancing workplace diversity, equity, and inclusion in the outdoor industry. And we have seen such an upsurge of interest from the cycling industry and incredible movement and progress in taking action. So I was so excited to be here today to be able to share some of what is happening in the cycling industry, even from a data and evaluation standpoint. My background, I've worked 20 years in equity. primarily in health equity. So it was such a natural segue into the outdoor industry, whose focus really is getting outdoors, about physical, mental well-being. And so we're excited to share more about what Camber is doing. And as a Latina woman of faith, it was my first time introduced into the outdoor industry when I came to Camber. So when you think about women like yourselves who have paved the way for so many other types of women to come in, I'm just truly grateful to be asked here today and to be part of this panel. So thank you.
Thank you all. Mercedes, I'm glad you brought up that you're the veteran, because I'm like struggling internally with at what point in my career
Trailblazer.
do I become a veteran? With close to 20 years of experience myself in the cycling space, we've all kind of alluded to the fact that we've had our own experiences and struggles with equal opportunity, especially in the cycling industry. And I think it comes as no surprise when females do tend to stay in this space and thrive. It's not necessarily easy, and it's great to have other trailblazers to have paved the way. But to start on some of going backwards, Mindy, I'd love to hear a little bit more about what data points Camber has today on gender equity, especially as it relates to cycling.
Yeah, so we're seeing incredible movement, and we started to do measure partners across many spaces, but since a lot of our membership is cycling, we're able to segment some of that data out. And when we looked at the space across the industry, we could see that there were not signs yet tied to gender equity, but specifically in the outdoor industry, when we looked at Camber membership, it was almost a 50-50 split, which was pretty incredible when you look at the rest of the country or even other industries outside of cycling and outdoor. Part of what we're looking for is sort of that next layer of movement, is that how do you move women who are seasoned, who are veteran, who are trailblazers into leadership roles in the industry, and sort of that next layer of diversity, equity, inclusion, when you move beyond gender. And so, but it was just a really exciting finding as you're starting to see the shifts. And we realized that organizations who are specifically, usually that is the first layer, they look at gender equity as part of their first sort of movement into DEI, and those who have specifically been measuring, analyzing, and changing their practices around recruiting and hiring at the inception of becoming a Camber partner were about 80% men, 20% women, and now have moved in a 3-year period to 50-50 gender equity across their workplaces. So incredible strides happening, really outpacing the rest of the other types of industries in the country.
That's pretty amazing. So tagging on to the data part, thank you. Mercedes, you have a lot of industry experience from retail and now to advocacy. And over the years, can you share some of your perspectives on the improvement that you've seen in the industry and how it supports the next generation of women?
Yes, so like I said, when I first started, it was me and all men. And I had to navigate that, I'm going to say it, battlefield initially. And what I had to do as a woman back then was prove that what I was trying to do, back then it was design retail stores that would sell more product, that what I was doing had credibility. And my biggest hurdle was the fact that I was going into a male-owned shop and telling them what to do. And it took me a long time to figure out how to do that. As I progressed through the industry, more and more women started coming into the industry, and I felt like it was easier to do my job because I wasn't alone anymore. So over those 34 years, and I'm going to use one female as an example, Lisa Walk at Giant, she ran Giant, was exceptional at not only really bringing women up through her ranks, making them feel comfortable, also educating the retailers, and this is important, that not only is it important to bring females up in your staff, but the females, which represent, 50% of our ridership in the country, coming into the stores, are actually comfortable coming into the stores. And bless her heart, she's left our bicycle industry. I'm still very much involved and in touch with her because now she's running Burton. She's doing the same thing at Burton with the president there. But so the only thing that I can express is to not only nurture and bring women up within your staff and within your organization, but also the female clients that are coming in, that are cycling enthusiasts and in our world, that they're made to be felt more comfortable. And I see it all the time, and I spent my whole life training retailers how to do their businesses better. And in that transition, we became aware of the fact that there were so many women cycling out there being ignored, and that it was a very large population base that needed to be nurtured. So, but I'm going to say this again, we've come such a long way. It's a great time to be a woman in the industry, and I thank the industry for actually making that happen. I see a huge difference, and the most important difference, I'm going to be personal, is we have wonderful female mechanics coming into our little classes in high schools, very interested in getting into the bicycle industry. We have in our classes of about 22 to 35, we always have 3 to 5 females coming in, wanting to learn the industry. So I'm seeing it at a very grassroots level, which is great.
That's so amazing. I would love to see that happen in real life sometime. And to your point of like the welcoming and including, a friend of mine and a very wise woman, Rebecca Rush, has always said, well, if you invite them in, it's pretty easy.
Yeah, yes.
It's like the simplest thing. Kelsey, Little Bellas has a unique way of describing their relationship between your coaches and your students. They use the term mentors as opposed to coaches. Can you speak to the intentionality behind that language and why it matters?
Totally. So yeah, a Little Bella's program kind of looks different, from program to program, but for the most part, it's a bunch of girls, or just kids basically, but mainly girls, who show up, and there are, a certain ratio of adult women. And so we don't really have any male role models available, which is really special. So these mentors, are responsible for obviously keeping everybody safe, but are also there to, cultivate this strong female relationship, to show what it looks like to be friends with other women, to encourage other women, to build other women up, and to just like kind of be silly, and break through that role of, yeah, we are okay with kind of looking like a fool sometimes. And like, if I wreck, it's not a big deal. Like, it just happens. And so, I think the importance of that language is, when you think of a coach, you think of a certain type of person. And the role of a coach is usually to push you and to make you do things that maybe you don't want to do. Or to, say, okay, this is the goal, and this is how we're going to get from point A to point B. Coaches are extremely important. I'm not ragging on coaches. But the difference from a coach to a mentor is that there are a whole lot of soft skills that go into being a mentor, and a lot of that is having been through it, having experienced a lot of the things that these girls are going through, or whether that's mountain biking and, you're like, I'm really scared of this big rock, and it's like, I've been there. Or, it's like, hey, this stuff is happening at home and it's really rough. And it's like, I remember what it was like being a 9-year-old girl. Like, that is really rough. And so helping them navigate these things that are bigger than cycling, like, of course, the goal is that these girls will stick with cycling for the rest of their lives, because I think we're all convinced that that's a great thing. But, even if they don't, the idea is that with these mentors who are encouraging them, seeing them fail, and continuing to encourage them, to build them up, to convince them that they're capable of something that they may not have thought they were, hopefully those skills are being transferred into these professional roles when they grow up, and they're in a place that they may be the only woman, or they're afraid to raise their voice, or they're afraid to make a mistake or make a fool of themselves. We try with these mentors to create a safe space for these girls to fail or to try something new and know that, at the end of the day, they can get back up and try again tomorrow. So kind of getting used to that feeling of putting themselves out there. I think that the mentor aspect of Little Bellas is kind of the bread and butter, and a lot of the women who are mentors it's like so many programs that exist today of like, oh, I wish we had this when I was a kid, I could have skipped like 6 hard lessons throughout my adolescence if I had just had Little Bellas to help me like fast forward through that. That's the goal, is to try to help these younger girls skip some hard things, so that they can get even further than like our generation is going to get.
Yeah, I think like for a lot of us, we all think about how we can leave our own personal legacy and leave the world a better place for the next generation. And we've talked a lot about mentors, and Mercedes, you've talked about the mentors you've had in the industry space. And through my experiences, I've had both. I've experienced a lot of competition with other women as they're trying to fight for their space and value. And I've also experienced really good opportunities with other women that have invited me in and included me and brought me along with them. So I'd like each of our panelists to share an experience or a moment in time where you felt that there was a creation of a strong bond with another female that helped really elevate your experience, your connection to the industry, your opportunity in it, and how it shaped your career going forward.
I spoke about Elisa Walk, but later on in my career, when I was pretty established, there was a woman that owned, I think she had 10 bicycle shops at the time, and she was out in San Diego. And she called me up and she wanted to redesign, I used to design retail stores, every single one of her shops. And in that time frame of redesigning 10 stores, I came out and was obviously involved in her business and watched how she ran that business. She and her husband ran the business, but she was very much the one that was really running the business. And most importantly, employing all the employees. All her mechanics in her warehouse, so she had a very different way of doing service, were female. And super unique, and she still has her chain of stores and a very unique way of providing service. But what I really learned from her, it was probably a 3-year period that it took us to redo all those stores, was how she did integrate in all her different stores female employees. Did elevate them to management, did elevate them to, like I said, running the entire mechanics department, and how she nurtured that balance between all of her employees. And it was very much an equal world, and that in that she made her guests, it was what she called her customers, feel so comfortable coming into the stores. And so I just got goosebumps. Because she created that wonderful environment for her employees, and both women and men, the ultimate end consumer was made to feel comfortable within her retail stores. And obviously, in the end, that shows up in the cash drawer. So she's very successful, and she figured it out. And I think there's a lesson to be learned from that. And so it takes all those parts. It's not any one thing, but paying attention to that part of our industry, and paying attention to nurturing that good environment, I think, is what we need to strive for in our companies and in our businesses. I run a nonprofit, and we certainly teach those students right off the bat that if they're going to go work in a bike shop, that they need to respect all people walking in the door. And it's a big part of our curriculum. Really important. It's a separate part of our curriculum is equality, and we're catching them young, and so I hope we're doing a good job. The bike shops that are out there that have our students have said we've done a good job, so hopefully we're catching them early. But I encourage everybody to really go back and look at that.
Thank you. So one of my mentors in life, her name was Emily Newman, and she's the former co-CEO of Camber. But I had the privilege of meeting her very early in my philanthropic career, working in health equity. And through that mentorship, her and I became incredible friends, and I just saw the way she led people and loved community and also loved the outdoors. And so she went on in her career to become co-CEO of Camber Outdoors. And talk about two women sharing a space, right? That's incredible. You talked about there could be sometimes competition in the space, but to see it co-led by two women was incredibly powerful. And I sort of came to Camber Outdoors, of course, with the passion and equity, but I traveled with my family. I had an opportunity to do consulting for several years, and we started to go outdoors more and do a lot of traveling, biking and kayaking and all kinds of stuff. And what I realized is when I was out, there were not a lot of people in the space who looked like me and my family. And many times we went places and it was pointed out to us in various different ways. And I just thought, this should be for everyone. I thought about, we talked about the little girls, right? And it's whether you're an avid cyclist or you just want that freedom that they talked about. I remember being a 10-year-old little girl at Christmas, and all I wanted was a bike for Christmas. And that moment that you get to look at it and how you light up and how it really just changes this part of your life, and you get to explore beyond your little neighborhood. And so when she invited me into the outdoor space, it was an immediate yes for me to think about how more women of color can come into the space, and how I can continue to be mentored and also provide mentorship for other women who want to come into the space. So that's how I end up in the outdoor industry, because someone invited me in.
As for Little Bellas, the entire organization is women, and so I'm like, take my pick of who to look up to. But there is one woman specifically who I've considered a mentor for since the beginning, and her name's Martha Flynn, and she runs a whole bunch of Little Bellas programs in the Twin Cities in Minnesota. And she interviewed me for my first Little Bellas chapter. She's been with me since day one. And, all the intimidation of starting your own thing that I'm going to be in charge of, whatever chapter of Little Bellas I start will have an imprint of who I am on it, whether it's the mentors and how I kind of manage them and lead them and how we interact with those girls. It's all going to come from me. And so there is a lot of intimidation and kind of second guessing of okay, even in this interview, am I going to represent my full self to where when they say, okay, yeah, you get a chapter, am I going to have imposter syndrome? Because there's stuff about me they can't know. They would never have let me do this if they really knew me. And so it's been such a lesson to get to know Martha and to be able to call her and be like, this happened today, what do I do? And that's become a mantra in my life, whether it's Little Bellas or just trying to be a responsible adult. It's just what would Martha do? Because she has been through it. Again, back to that mentor language and kind of what mentors are for. She has been through it, and she has been and she's come through on the other side and has been just so rock solid. She's not afraid to ask questions. She's not afraid to stand up. She's not afraid to, make room and to ask people, whether it's male or female or whatever, if they'll do her a favor, even if I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so inconvenient for you to ask this bike shop to borrow their van. And she's like, let's do it. And so I'm like, okay. So, I feel like she definitely has been a huge mentor for me within Little Bella's and without just of what a woman is capable of doing when she's like focused, when she's determined, and when she has like a clear goal set. But even outside of Little Bella's, like otherwise in the industry, I've worked in bike shops in the past, and just having another female in the shop with you that you can just be like, hey, did you see that person just like breeze right by us when we said hello and they just went straight to the male mechanic to ask them a question? Like that type of camaraderie is so important, because otherwise you're just the only one and you're like, was that on purpose? Like, am I crazy? Or maybe I just really don't know anything. And you find yourself like deferring to the men in the shop, or I did at least, because I'm like, well, I don't know, so let's ask them. But it's so great to have another woman there that it's like, no, we do know this. Like we should be answering these questions. So yeah, it's so important just to have not just a woman, but many, so that these women can feel confident and supported themselves.
Yeah, I agree. I think over the course of my career, finding several different women in all capacities to help just continue to like provide that confidence and elevate your perspective and things, and understand that it's not just you. So with that being said, we've talked a lot about like the relationships and strong bonds between women relationships, but I'd be totally remiss to say that I got this far in my career solely based on myself and the women that I have surrounding me. I've had 3 very amazing male mentors in my career that have continued to help me and really leaned in to seeing me want to like grow and foster that. So with that, Kelsey, do you want to start? What role do men play in advancing gender equity in women? Or what thoughts do you have on?
I have a lot of thoughts. Obviously, the role shouldn't be that like women are on the outside beating to get in, and then finally when we kick down the door, we get to be inside. It definitely should be like, if you're on the inside and you can just open the door, that's better for everyone. And it's not that when women are allowed in many capacities, that means there's less opportunity for men. It gets better across the board. Like you were mentioning, when women are present, not only are women more comfortable, but men are more comfortable, and your shop makes more money, or, more people show up to the group ride. It can manifest itself in so many ways. And I think, of course, I've had so many male bosses that have just like absolutely made space for me, and as well as like male coworkers that have, I think a lot of men are I've heard a lot that, like, I have a wife, I have daughters, and that's great, but we're not your wife and we're not your daughter, like we're just a peer. And so treating us that way and giving us the same opportunities that you would anyone else is obviously what's going to make the difference. I don't feel like, I guess me personally, I don't want to wrench something out of someone's hands, because that doesn't make me feel welcome. I want to be invited and trusted and reminded that my opinion and my instincts and the calls that I'm making are validated and supported. And so, so many bosses in the past again, but like even in like customer service jobs that I've had in the past, like answering phones for, bike support stuff. And I trust my team of men to give me real feedback. And so I was noticing as I was answering the phone to give like bike tech support, that people were, in my mind, I was like, are they just hearing that my voice sounds female? Because the first thing they would always ask was, hey, I have a tech question. Are you a good person to answer that? And I was like, am I reading too into this, or like, is this just what they ask? And so I felt comfortable, going to my male coworkers and saying, does this happen to you? And they're like, it does. But they're like, let us know if it happens too much, because like that's something that we want to, figure out how to correct if we can. But, I said that to a room full of dudes, and I felt comfortable putting myself out there because, it's really easy for a question like that to be asked and then be like, wow, she's on high alert, like, whoa, that feels really specific. And it sure is, but I was like, whether we can change, people's response to me on the phone or not, it's helpful to know that if someone, comes at me or disregards me because I'm a female, I have my boss's support and I have my male coworker support. I feel like we could tell a million stories, but, like managing bike shops, and men do tend to breeze by you when you say, hey, can I help you with anything? And they're like, no, I'm good. And then they go to the male mechanic and ask them the question. And it is like, I've never felt more validated than when those men go, oh no, Kelsey can help you with that. You're like, oh no, Kelsey handles that. And I'm like, yeah, now you have to come talk to me. So, I feel like obviously there are so many opportunities to bring women up in your lives. But again, I feel like it comes down to giving them the chance, giving them feedback that will help them grow and become better, and allowing them to trust their instincts. Because I feel like second guessing is kind of the death of confidence. So reinforcing that.
I'm glad to know I didn't have that experience myself. Mindy, do you want to talk about the role that men play?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll share a little history. So Camber Outdoors was formerly Outdoor Industry Women's Coalition, and it focused on elevating women in the workplace. And we designed a mentorship program that was executive women mentoring other women to help them break through other ceilings in the outdoor industry. But what we also realized is that men wanted to be allies in the field. And so over the last 2 years, we've developed what's called the allyship program, which everyone in this room, if you're a male, can sign up for to be an ally. But it's to pair you with other women who are in the industry so that you can do a leadership exchange of learning from one another. I thought about, wow, how empowered workplaces will be when they're learning, when men are learning from women and women are learning from men, and it's this cross exchange of information. And research is telling us that organizations who have women in leadership, very specifically at the management level and above, outperform other workplaces financially. And so there's, beyond sort of the human component of it, which is, I think, how I entered the space, there are so many other elements around innovation and profit. There's so many different ways to think about diversity and thought and leadership and how people enter the space. I myself had the opportunity to participate in the program, and I had a male ally who's David Norden out of Taos-Ski Valley, who invited me and my entire family out into the space in Taos, New Mexico. It was our first time ever exploring skiing and snowboarding, but now my family loves it, right? And so the idea that someone can invite you into a space who has incredible networking and who will introduce you to leadership across the board and open up new opportunities, it was incredibly empowering for me. And I think we work in that allyship program with both men and women together, but also in separate labs so that they can feel confident about sharing their concerns. And so in my early years, I was only mentored by women. And I did have a concern about being mentored by a male because I didn't know what the perception of me would be if I was seen in a continuous space with a man, and how other people might view that, or how his family might feel like that, about him having a woman in his presence more frequent, right? And so really working to understand, demystify some of the process, letting them be comfortable in spaces with one another in the allyship program, creating a professional networking space for them to do that was really crucial. And so we've seen such great strides. It's going to be its fourth cohort now of men and women allies coming together to make industries better. And so I know that I have been empowered in so many ways through those allyships that I have created as part of that opportunity. And I know that it can be incredibly empowering for other women. So it's just so nice to see so many men in the industry really wanting to step up and be peers, right? Not a daughter, not a wife, but really be my peer and friend in this space and say, I want to see you succeed too. And so I'm incredibly grateful that Camber has opened up that opportunity for both sides.
Mercedes.
Well, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those men in that career path that believed in me, that back then took a chance in my insane need to make things better in bike shops. And I'm going to say that Mike Sinyard probably had the biggest impact on me for Specialized. He believed in what I was bringing him as a young, energetic human, and he also saw in me that entrepreneur, and he knew that I shouldn't be an employee. And he said to me, these are very important words, he nurtured what he saw in me. He goes, go home and start your own company, and then I'll hire your company to merchandise the stores. And that's what I did. And his belief, that was the first introduction into the bicycle industry. And the second thing he did to nurture that was he knew he was sending me into bike shops, and he knew he was sending me into the world of men who owned their own shops and believed that their shops were awesome, but they weren't. And so he introduced me to a certain trajectory. So the first person I met was Chris Cagle from Wheel and Sprocket. And Mike knew that if I went in there, Chris would believe in what I was doing, and he's the nicest person in the bicycle industry. So I zoom in, put in the concept shop, everything's great. Chris Cagle, awesome. The next person he sent me into was Hill Abel in Austin, who's the second nicest person in the bicycle industry. And the third person he sent me was Bill in New Hampshire, who was the third nicest person. So I had this momentum of both incredible bicycle shop owners, and it gave me a lot of confidence so that when I finally hit, I love him to death, Richardson Bike Mart, who was one of my tough people, I was ready. And so Mike Sinyard set me up for success. Those other men believed in me and let me prove that what I was doing was correct. And thank God they sold more product. But then when I did hit Richardson Bike Mart, and I just, I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. Anyways, I just saw him at the Wheel and Sprocket 50th anniversary, and that man came over and gave me a big hug because over the years we had become very dear and close friends, and we changed his shop many times. But all those men gave me as a woman back then in the 90s, 80s and 90s, an opportunity, and I thank them. And like I said, I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for them and them believing in me and giving me a chance and then propelling me forward to be successful. So Mike could have sent me to Richardson Bike Mart first, and I probably would have failed miserably, but he didn't. And so just to do that, and like you were saying, to see what someone is capable of doing and having that presence to bring them in and nurture the talent that they do have, whether they're female or male, I think is what needs to happen in general. So I thank all those men that believed in my crazy self. And I remember, I'm going to share this with you. One time I stood on Mike Sinyard's desk because I so wanted the concept shops to be a certain way, and that poor man put up with me for many years. But it worked. Everybody sold more product, so in the end, it was a success. And like I said, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. And I love my job. I love what I do. I feel so strongly. I love the bicycle industry. I love the community that it is, and all that hard work of getting to where we are now is fantastic. I love seeing all the women at industry events and the men that got me here. I thank them.
Well, bringing that full circle, so we know that it takes women, it takes men to both equally create opportunity to bridge the gap with equitable opportunities. Mindy, do you have an example of a company that's doing this really well, whether or not it's cycling but in the broader outdoor space?
Yeah, actually, one of our biggest partners in terms of seeing them take action and make progress on the action is actually People for Bikes. And so we work really closely with their entire team. We've done a lot of pilot work with them that's actually going to be launched into the outdoor industry for everyone to use in October. Jen at People for Bikes, JJ, Ravi, their entire leadership team, as well as their DEI committee, was instrumental in helping us develop those very specific trainings. And so we're going to be, I'm so excited to launch them next month. We're going to ready to market it very soon. But what we're seeing is incredible progress, them really wanting to model what diversity, equity, and inclusion looks like, but they knew they had to live those values first before they could model it for the rest of the industry. And they have brought so many new partners to Camber on boards. Of course, we're a nonprofit, so we function on membership and donations and foundation support. But they have been an incredible advocate in the space, bringing so many partners along, establishing sub-DEI committees within the cycling industry because they want to see true transformation. And so, and thinking about cycling on a larger scale, those who are avid bicyclists or those who are coming in the door. I'm a true Southern California now, where my bike is now, a beach cruiser. But any space that allows you to create community. And so we had some great conversation at the table today, and they asked me, what do you think are those barriers to inclusion, to allowing more people, more females, more people of color into the space? And I think some of that stems around from safety and communities, right? Them feeling that there is a safe space to ride. So some of that is infrastructure. But when I hear about bicycling, sometimes you think of it as a solo experience. But what I'm finding as I go to running events and when I come to cycling events now is that it's a true community. I mean, I had a beautiful story shared at the table, right, from Steve and his wife, who met in the cycling community. People are finding true value, community connections in those spaces far beyond just sort of the health and physical aspects of it. And so I think that it's a space with a lot of opportunity. I'm so grateful for our partners. There are many other cycling partners. SRAM is one of our partners, Specialized, and we're seeing movement, but really seeing it happen the quickest, I guess you could say, in terms of progress and action at People for Bikes.
That's great to hear. So if our audience is sitting here thinking these are all great shared experiences and stories and words to live by, what is one takeaway that you would offer them to help bridge that gap or allow more space for women in the cycling industry? And I'm going to let whoever wants to go first go.
I think we're doing it right now. I think just to be aware of how far we've come, number one, pat ourselves on the back and know that there's more to be done. And I think it is literally, we're all business people, to go back to our organizations, assess what we are doing ourselves within our organization to nurture that and to act on it and hold ourselves accountable in the next 3 months. How are you actually integrating this idea into your organization, into your corporation, and hold yourself accountable for that, and nurture that process, I think. But I think this is a good start, don't you?
I would say, remain teachable and humble. And, as we go about our different directions and start, doing our work, it's really easy to just keep your head down and be like, okay, well, this is the easiest, fastest decision. This guy's here, so we're going to pick him. Just pop your head up every once in a while, reconsider, do a gut check. And, you know, it's, I mean, across life, but especially when it comes to like including people who you normally wouldn't come to the forefront of your mind, it becomes a practice, you know, and continually saying, okay, like out of all these interviewees, which one of these, you know, would make the biggest impact in our company? You know, not the person that makes me the most comfortable or, you know, the person that's the most familiar, but continually question yourself. And I mean, for women too, we have our own biases, but just always, you know, maybe not assuming that you know, asking questions, reevaluating your own decisions, and looking back on things and learning from mistakes. Like, I think remaining humble and teachable gets us all a pretty long way.
I would say measure where you're at so you can take action, right? You've heard that saying, what gets measured gets done. And so at Camber, we've established what's called the Camber survey system, open to outdoor industry partners. And it allows you to measure progress of DEI from inclusion and belonging and systems and benefits and all along the spectrum of workplaces. So when you think about creating equitable benefits that support women in the workplace or other types of, BIPOC members coming in of underrepresented groups to really diversify, the surveying allows us to see a window, a glimpse into where we are, but it creates a vision for what can be. And so it has been such a powerful tool. In fact, it has actually just received approval from the Association of American Evaluation. It's going to be in their new direction evaluations publication coming out next year because it's one of the most robust surveying that they have seen in the field of philanthropy. And we're really excited that to have evaluation partners, Claremont Graduate University, who's in Southern California, come alongside. And what makes this incredibly unique is that in most spaces we can think about operating in silos as competitors, but when you think about cycling as a whole or an industry as a whole, wanting to move the needle on real progress and inclusion makes us all a community, and we get to operate in one together versus competitors on different types of levels. And so measure and take action. And I say to people who say, we're a long ways away, maybe we are, but let's stay hopeful because progress and change is happening.
Thank you. I mean, I would say that going back to some of my experiences over my career, having a male grab a hold of you and say, like, in the most appropriate manner, come along with me. I'm going to introduce you to 10 different people right now, inviting me in, bringing me along into spaces that normally I wouldn't have been invited into unless someone purposefully did it. And I think that was a big takeaway that I had over my career. So going forward, I always try to show up for other people like that, whether it's new males into the industry or females that are also looking to grow. It's just a really good reminder. So.